Way back in June 2021, the then Chief of Defence Staff, that is CDS, late General Bipin Rawat, was part of a crucial meeting at the Ministry of Defence chaired by Defence Minister Rajnath Singh. Also in the room were the three service chiefs and top Defence Ministry bureaucrats. The agenda. Well, before I go further, I would like to make an appeal to you. As I stand here before you, several colleagues of mine are traveling across the country to get you stories that really matter. Stories from the ground that don't make it to the front pages of your newspaper or, for that matter, your favorite TV channel. And that's why we at ThePrint have the ground reports. But all of this comes at a cost. And hence, I appeal to you to follow the instructions that you see on the screen and be a part of the Print family by subscribing to ThePrint, because free news is never free. Now, coming back to the 2021 meeting, as I mentioned, the agenda was the rollout of the much touted theaterisation plan, General Rawat's big ticket reform, which he had hoped to implement by the end of that year. The meeting, however, became a turning point. A senior bureaucrat questioned the finer aspects of the proposal, and then the plan collapsed like a house of cards. It emerged that General Rawat had not held any interministerial consultations with either the Finance or the Home Ministry, even though the plan had major financial implications and envisaged bringing the BSF and ITBP under the Ministry of Home Affairs into the theatre command's folds operationally. What also became apparent was the lack of consensus among the three services themselves on even the basic structure of the theaterisation model. The meeting ended with General Rawat being asked to return to the drawing board. I had then reported exclusively in ThePrint that the theaterisation plan was bound to be delayed since there was no agreement on the fundamentals. One of the dilemmas that persist is whether the theatre commands should be designed as country-specific structures or build around broader challenges. Unsurprisingly, my report had not gone down well with the late General Rawat. Within days, a national daily carried a story citing sources that dismissed media reports hinting at a delay, a clear counter to what I had revealed. Following General Rawat's tragic demise, General Anil Chauhan took over as the CDS. More methodical in his approach, he stressed on the importance of consensus. He wanted to carry everyone along. General Chauhan realized that structures without genuine integration of thought and action would prove disastrous. Over time, various permutations and combinations debated until there was some common ground on the need for a unified command approach. Cut to 2025 and the aftermath of Op Sindoor at Ran Samvad, India's first tri-service seminar on military affairs modeled on the lines of Shangri-La dialogue, the old fissures resurfaced. For the first time, serving officers spoke publicly in a forum that included veterans and think tank experts as audience. The discussions focused on technology, modern warfare, and joint operations. However, the issue of theaterisation exposed old fault lines. Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh set the tone on day one. In a fireside chat, he argued for a Delhi-based Joint Planning and Coordination Centre led by the Tri-Service Chiefs and the CDS instead of rushing into theaterisation. He said that this is how exactly the Op Sindoor panned out, and he felt that it panned out really well. The Air Force Chief stressed that the services should not come under any pressure to create theatre commands prematurely. The next day, Navy Chief Admiral Dinesh K. Tripathi struck a different note, even though he agreed with the Air Force Chief on having a joint command. He declared that the Navy was committed to synergizing command, control, communication, and combat capability with the Army and the Air Force, but with the ultimate aim of theaterization. Once again, the differences were out in the open. The Navy has long been on board with the theaterization plan, since it stands to lead the Maritime Theatre Command, overseeing both the eastern and western seaboards. It will actually be the biggest theatre, with the entire Navy staying intact and elements from the IAF and Army being added to the Maritime Command. But the Air Force remains unconvinced. The Air Force operates centrally with assets that can be shifted across commands as required, unlike the Army and the Navy. For example, during Op Sindoor, it was the Air Headquarters which was directing the entire campaign, taking out assets from the central sector or from the eastern and diverting it to the western sector as and when demanded. IAF commands are in a way given temporary custody of assets that are controlled centrally, unlike in the case of the Army and the Navy. Splitting these into multiple theater commands, it argues that is the Air Force would be counterproductive. Its position, each country's requirements are unique and India should not blindly copy US or Chinese models. As the IAF sees it, why fix what isn't broken? In his closing remarks, CDS General Chauhan acknowledged the divergence but called it healthy. He subtly rebuked the instinct to protect turf, tactfully blaming the veterans for being more rigid on the matter. Still, he underlined that the final decision would be taken in the nation's best interest. The bottom line, whether in 2021 or 2025, the armed forces remain split on the need, scope, and structure for theaterization. And it is not just about the turf, it is about the fundamental question of whether this reform is necessary in the way it has been imagined. It also raises a larger question. How did the theaterization come to be written into the CDS's mandate in the first place? Was there ever a serious study, war game, or deliberation to examine India's unique needs? If so, at what level was it held, and what did it conclude? Because the evidence so far suggests that the services were never truly on board with the idea. For The Print, this is Snehesh Alex Philip. Do subscribe to The Print's YouTube channel for more such videos.